Immortality. That's kind of an unconventional idea for a Naruto story, am I right? But such a concept isn't exactly out of the realm of possibility. You see, there have been varying levels of immortality within the series, but none of them really offer true immortality, only varying degrees of it, like Orochimaru's technique, which allows him ageless immortality via parasitic tendencies. Then there's Kakazu, who incorporates the hearts of his victims into himself to attain extra lives, like a Mario character. But there always was one who had true immortality, and the means by which he did so are shrouded in darkness and mystery. So maybe we can explore that today. Welcome to the Amagi. Before we begin, only 25% of our viewers are subscribed. So if you're a fan of the video, please like and double check if you are subscribed, and with that out of the way, let's get into the video. Naruto ran through the playground. Quite rarely was he ever allowed to play with anyone. If the parents of the children saw that they were cavorting with him, they would pull them away. But today, no parents were around, so the kids, innocent as they were, had no reason not to play with Naruto. Today was a great treat for him. Having spent most of his life alone, he never did anything worth doing. His only companion was his own heart and an empty room. To get any form of social interaction was like the effects of the most potent drug, to the point that he desired it so badly that he'd even seek negative social interaction. He was a curse to his village. His village hated him, and he gave them all the more reason to, whatever he could to be acknowledged. And right now, getting pure, positive acknowledgement, there was no greater emotional high than this. To play tag, to play on the swing, the monkey bars, he didn't even offer up any games. He was content playing whatever they liked, even if it held no particular interest to him. The only thing he was interested in was the interaction that they provided. The fact that they wanted to play with him at all was enough to make him want to play their games. The more they played, the happier he got, and the best part was that they almost seemed as though they were interested in being his friend for real. Not long after, one of the older boys in the group showed up. He was wearing a Konoha headband. All of the other kids stopped playing and flocked around him. Naruto would join in, coming closer. The boy had apparently just become a genin and was flaunting it in front of his friends. "Yup, I'm a real shinobi now," he said. "The academy saw my skills and were so impressed that they just gave me this headband. They even said they considered skipping genin entirely and just giving me jonin status because I'm that good." "Really? That's so cool," the kids said, buying every word he was saying. The boy, filled with pride, sniffed and flicked his nose with his thumb. "If you guys are lucky, maybe I'll teach you a few things." This sent everyone over the moon with excitement, Naruto included. Naruto had always wanted to become a shinobi, but was having issues in class. With nobody to help him, he was unable to really get ahead. And so, despite the fact that he cast doubt on the jonin statement, he was truly excited about the concept of getting a little instruction from someone who actually made it as a genin. The boy told them all to follow him. He began going over the basics. "When running, be sure to lean forward and push off your toes. This allows you to sprint faster and farther. Also be sure to angle your arms behind you. It makes you aerodynamic." "What does aerodynamic mean?" one of the younger kids asked. The genin pointed to him. "It means to be dynamic with the air, of course." "What is dynamic?" the same kid asked. The genin waved the question off. "It's too complicated to explain to you. I don't think you'd understand if I told you." He began to show them how to run. Most of the kids were having a tough time mimicking it. Some were ducked down too far, others weren't ducked down enough, and some were just letting their arms dangle by the side. It was sweet in its own way. Naruto, on the other hand, was able to do it perfectly, to the point that his stance might have even been better than the genin himself. Of course, this made the genin feel a little self-conscious. "That's a good run, Naruto. You're close to genin level, but there's lots of stuff we genin can do that you can't, and you've got to learn it yourself." "Like what?" Naruto asked. "Well, like parkour." "Parkour?" Naruto asked. The genin nodded. "It's not enough just to run. You gotta be agile enough to run across the entire village." He led them up to a rooftop nearby. He pointed across the city. "A true shinobi can go across this whole place with no issue. If you're really on my level, then I guess you can beat me in a race." The other kids were watching intently from the ground. Naruto, feeling that he had to accept the challenge to maintain this friendship, nodded. "Okay, I'll give it a try." The genin would get down into a good starting position. "First one to the academy wins." One of the kids below began to count them off. 1, 2, 3, go! Both Naruto and the genin began to run. They jumped from rooftop to rooftop. As they moved, the genin was surprised to see that Naruto was keeping up. "You're good, but not as good as me," he shouted as he poured on the speed. Naruto managed to keep up with him. Getting frustrated, the genin pushed his limits, going over his head, trying to make bigger jumps to get ahead, but Naruto was still keeping up. Confused, he couldn't help but look back at Naruto. How is he doing this, he wondered. The genin jumped and miscalculated. Landing on the other side, he was losing balance while teetering on the edge. Naruto made the jump and could have kept going, but he stopped. He turned around to see the genin still struggling. Naruto rushed back and grabbed the genin by the collar and pulled him in. The genin stumbled forward, face red, and looked back at Naruto. "Are you okay?" Naruto asked. The genin, in anger, stated that he had it and didn't need Naruto by any means. He shoved Naruto out of frustration. As Naruto stumbled back though, his heel caught the edge of the roof and he tipped over the side. He began to fall, landing on one of the eaves protruding from the side of the building before rolling off of it and falling to the ground. The kids below screamed. Naruto felt his entire body ring like a bell. As he looked up toward the sky, his eyes traveled down and noticed a rather large steel pipe protruding from his chest. There was blood on it. His blood. Naruto's eyes rolled up in his head. The genin came down the side as the other kids, panicking, ran to Naruto. "Naruto!" they all shouted in terror. "You killed him!" one of the kids shouted. The genin looked around and then shushed the others. "You all watched this. You're accessories to it. If this gets out, we'll all go to jail. Do you want that? You'll never get to see your parents or the sun ever again." The kids all started to freak out. "What do we do?" "We gotta get rid of the body," the genin said. They began to pull Naruto off of the pipes. "Where do we take him?" they asked. The genin looked around. He noticed that they were near the lake. "To the lake!" They quickly carried him off to the dock. Heaving him back and forth, they threw Naruto in. Naruto slowly began to sink to the lake bed. The genin looked back at the others. "You saw nothing. Nothing happened here today. We take this to our graves." The kids attempted to wash the blood off their hands and clothes as best they could before leaving the area. As darkness began to fall, Naruto's eyes opened. He saw the soft moonlight above him as a large bubble exited his mouth. Slowly, he willed himself to float up. He began to make his way to the bank of the lake where he started to pull himself out. As he hit the land, he let out a gag and a cough where his lungs and stomach attempted to expel the water that had packed them from top to bottom. For a few minutes, Naruto just sat there, puking. When he finished, he finally got his first breath in the last few hours. His cold body seemed to regain some warmth as the color of his face started to return. He rolled over onto his back, emotions and mind not yet catching up with the fact that he just walked off the act of dying. As he went home to his apartment, he changed out of old clothes he was wearing and discovered the hole in his chest. Seeing this hole, he began to panic. He began to remember everything, how he fell and was impaled, and how the others tried to dispose of him by throwing him into the lake. Tears formed in his eyes as he looked at the hole. I'm dying. I died. Freaking out, he did the only sensible thing he could think of and called Hiruzen. "Hello," Hiruzen asked over the static of the telephone. Naruto, sniffling and hardly comprehensible, speaks. "Grandpa, I hurt myself. I think I'm dying." Needless to say, Hiruzen was at the door within minutes. He unlocked the door and walked in to see Naruto in the bathroom. There was blood everywhere, and Hiruzen thought he just might pass out. He then saw Naruto sitting on the lid of the toilet, trying to stop the bleeding. "Naruto, what happened?" Naruto then spoke. "I was playing with the other kids when a genin wanted to teach us. I went running with him and I fell off a roof and impaled myself." Naruto, sobbing uncontrollably, showed Hiruzen the hole in his chest that went clean through. Hiruzen's face turned a pale shade of white, almost resembling a corpse. Naruto then said that after that, the kids threw him in the lake where he sat at the bottom for hours until he came up for air after drowning to death. Hiruzen wasn't sure if he could believe Naruto's story. How did one drown and then come up for air? How did that happen? Doing his best with what he had, Hiruzen made use of his battlefield first aid training and packed the wound. He then picked Naruto up in his arms and carried him screaming to the hospital. Naruto was laid out on a stretcher as he was rushed back into surgery. Hiruzen waited outside patiently while the doctors worked. Eventually, the chief surgeon came out, his face twisted in confusion, shock, terror, and slight relief. "How is he?" Hiruzen asked. The doctor took his cap off and removed his mask. "I can't explain what happened in there." "What happened? Is Naruto all right?" Hiruzen asked. The doctor stuttered for a moment. "He's dead," the doctor said. Hiruzen sat down, feeling the weight of his failures upon his shoulders. The doctor then spoke again. "He's dead, but somehow he's not." Hiruzen looked up at the doctor. "What?" The doctor spoke. "The boy's lungs were filled with water, his body almost had no blood in it, and his heart wasn't beating from the start of the procedure. And I mean that literally. We couldn't detect a heartbeat from even before we put him under. He was still awake despite having no vital signs." Hiruzen stood again. "How does that work?" he asked. The doctor shook his head. "It doesn't. It just verifies what we've thought all along. He's possessed by a demon. Only a demon could keep someone alive. At this point, I don't even know if that's Naruto. For all I know, it's a demon using his memories and body. That's superstition, Hiruzen said. I'm not a superstitious man, Lord Third, but I'm telling you now, I'm going to become one because it's this doctor's opinion that this boy is dead, yet he's still alive. There's no scientific explanation for what I just witnessed. I'm washing my hands of this business. You can't just leave him like this, Hiruzen said. It's against your oath. The doctor turned around. We gave him a blood transfusion and restarted his heart. His wounds are closed. He's alive, whatever that means. I did my job. I'm done here. The doctor left the area, leaving Hiruzen indignant. He would head for Naruto's hospital room and would enter in. Finding the boy, he sat down next to the bed and waited for him to awaken. When he finally did, he looked to Hiruzen. Grandpa Hiruzen, am I dying? Hiruzen shook his head. No, Naruto, you're not dying. You survived. That pole actually missed all your vital organs, and the doctor said you weren't actually under the water that long, but it just seemed like you were because your mind was deprived of oxygen. But they said that you're all okay, and you're going to make a 100% recovery. Hiruzen was telling a bald-faced lie. No doctor had said anything of the like, but the important thing was that Naruto was alive, and he didn't want Naruto to question that blessing. To Hiruzen, it was no sign of a demon possessing Naruto, but instead a sign that God was looking out for him. Hiruzen tried to stay with Naruto for as long as he could, but he'd be called away for duty. Leaving the hospital, he told Naruto that he'd be back as soon as he could. Having left, Hiruzen would reach out to an old friend for advice. As Naruto laid there, he noticed that nurses seemed to avoid his room as best they could, which was strange. Naruto was starting to feel uncomfortable and would simply attempt to do most things by himself. Despite being told not to move, Naruto would forgo asking for help and would get up to grab the things he wanted himself. He tried to keep himself occupied with books, comics, and even attempted to color in a coloring book that Hiruzen had brought. That's what he was doing when she walked in. He looked up, confused to see a new woman entering the room. This woman's smile was genuine, and her face displayed a level of confidence about her that if Naruto really did merit the fear the others were showing, it wouldn't be enough to shake her. Who are you? He asked. The woman, smiling, walked in a little closer. My name is Tsunade. I'm friends with the third Hokage. Naruto sat up. It's a pleasure to meet you, he said. She smiled. The pleasure's all mine. She sat on the side of the bed. Show me, she demanded with her commanding aura and presence. Naruto pulled his collar down to show the wound on his chest, which was already almost healed. How long has it been since surgery, she asked. About 18 hours, someone called from behind. Tsunade looked back and then at Naruto. She took up the chart and began to read it over. And you say you were... I fell from a roof, was impaled in the chest, and then some other kids tried to drown me. Tsunade nodded slowly as she read it. The chart listed everything that they found. Fractured bones that had already started to mend by the time the surgery had finished. Pierced organs that had stopped functioning for a time, including heart failure that would later be reversed after the surgery. Essentially, Naruto had been dead on the table from the point he was brought into the OR to the point that he left it, which was a fair few hours. He should have been brain dead by then, and yet here he was sitting just fine. She was beginning to understand how the hospital was getting superstitious, but there had to be an explanation. Do you mind if I run some tests on you, Naruto? Naruto seemed to be growing anxious. Why? Tsunade smiled awkwardly to alleviate his fears. Oh, I just want to understand more about your body's functions and how you survived all this stuff. I want to see if you really did drown and how your lungs expelled it all. Is that okay? Naruto slowly nodded. Good. We can start now if you're ready. Naruto was ready, so she took him to receive an X-ray and a CAT scan to get a better idea of what the insides of his body looked like. Nothing out of the ordinary seemed to show up, so she took some blood samples and ran them under a microscope to see if anything was different. As she looked at these under the microscope, she noted that among the living cells, there were dead cells. This confused her, but as she looked at the dead cells, she was further confused. She thought she witnessed one of the dead cells that had been floating about spontaneously split into two cells, with one of them even returning to life and beginning normal biological functions again, including further mitosis. It's not as though Tsunade hadn't heard of such a thing happening, but this was different. This cell was unequivocally dead. It wasn't dying, it had reached the end of its life and by all means shouldn't be able to undergo mitosis. But not only had the cell done that, but one of the cells had even returned to life. And as she continued to watch, she noticed the other do the same. She couldn't understand how this was possible. From what she had gathered, there was nothing setting Naruto apart from anyone else, so how were his cells doing this? Even Tsunade's own technique, Creation Rebirth, couldn't match this. She'd used the technique to have living cells rapidly replace dead ones. Naruto was rapidly having dead cells close wounds before reviving themselves. He had almost somehow seemed to turn death into a new form of life, which was both revolutionary and kind of frightening. If this were true, it made Tsunade question the concept of a human's right to declare anyone dead. Did this mean that medical care should continue to be administered even after brain death? Could one return to life even after death? Suddenly, she felt her mind turn to Den and Nawaki. She pulled herself back, reining in her emotions. There was no proof of that, only that Naruto was unusual. It was possible that studying Naruto could lead to a so-called cure for death, but that was still a ways in the future, and anyone who died in the past, well, that couldn't be her fault. She couldn't be conceited enough to believe that she had all the answers and could apply them over any 4D spectrum of whens and wheres. She attempted to take a chakra sample. She wanted to see if maybe some jutsu had been cast on him or if he was somehow molding chakra in a way that could revive others. And as she did so, she didn't really notice much at first. That was until she accidentally contaminated the sample of his chakra with the blood she had taken. The moment she did so, she witnessed his chakra turn from a light blue to a deep crimson color. This has to do with the way that his chakra is reacting to his chi. She began attempting experiments on other blood samples, seeing if it could revive dead cells. But as she tried to incorporate Naruto's chakra to the blood of another patient, she came to realize that the blood received the opposite effect. Instead of healing dead cells and energizing the living ones, it actually seemed to suck the life out of the blood cells, killing them. It was at this moment that Tsunade wished that Orochimaru were still here. There was no mind quite as brilliant as his, and if anyone could understand what was happening with Naruto, it would be him. But he was gone. And since he was, that meant her experimentation had hit a wall. Without any further reason to keep him there, she discharged Naruto, but wrote down everything she discovered into a journal. Naruto would return to school not too much longer after. Returning to the classroom, he would sit down and continue his studies, but as he did, he knew something was wrong. Passing by everyone, he knew some of the kids who had seen him fall from the roof were left in shock, seeing him walking past. During recess, he sat alone on the swing. That was until perhaps a little curiosity got a hold of one of the kids. They approached him. It was a young fellow who had previously been one of Naruto's friends. "You know, we all thought you died. How are you alive?" the boy asked. Naruto shrugged. "The pipe missed my vital organs, and apparently I didn't sleep with the fishes as long as you guys thought I did." The boy looked away from shame. Naruto sat there. A part of him wanted to forgive them, but at the same time he didn't know how he could ever call them a friend again. He shook his head. "I won't tell anyone who did it to me, but I don't want to see or talk to any of you ever again." The boy looked down with a sigh. "I know it doesn't mean much, but I am sorry." The boy walked away as Naruto stared daggers into his back. The day came to a close, with Irika mentioning that the next Genin exam would take place at the start of the new school week. Going home, Naruto thought about everything. Taking a shower and brushing his teeth, all he could do was sit there and stare at the scar on his chest. It was nearly invisible now, but all he could do was stare and think about it. Why? Why did it have to happen to be him? How? How did he deserve it? For what purpose? As he thought back onto the good times he was having that day, he realized that he was still a lonely person, and wasn't sure why. Why were people avoiding him like the plague? Returning to his room, he sat on his bed and just looked outside the window at the warm summer night as it fell over the town. Laying back, he thought about the things he had experienced so far. It hurt him so badly to realize that no matter how hard he tried, who he called a friend, he could never truly find anyone worthy of being called one. There was no such thing as a friend in this world. As his eyes closed, he drifted off into sleep, or so he thought. As he laid there, he saw a thick red light enter the room. The skies had turned crimson, the color of blood, as the village's lights fled away from them. The clouds rushed by at speeds unusually quick, like a river's water. Naruto felt the atmosphere in the room shift. He was no longer alone. He tried to will himself to look over, but he couldn't see it. There was something in the corner, pulsating, seething, hissing in his direction, but he was unable to move. He could hardly breathe due to the pressure in the room. He was paralyzed. Sweat glistened off his chest as the moon's crimson light shone down, giving the sweat the appearance of blood. He tightly clutched the sheets of his bed, afraid that he was about to be mauled by whatever unholy abomination hid itself just out of sight. "Justice," it whispered in a breathy growl that could not be called human in any capacity. The malevolence of the creature seemed to set the room ablaze with a black fire. Still unable to move, Naruto felt himself pulled down. His sheets and mattress opened up to receive him. It began to swallow him whole like a monster. He fell into the dark, pitch-black emptiness before hitting liquid he could only assume was stomach acid. Sinking to the bottom, he opened his eyes to see only the light of a white, bright moon above him. The ocean shifted around him like some undersea seismic event were occurring. He felt like he was choking, like he couldn't breathe, yet he did not die. It was excruciating. "Justice," the voice whispered again. Suddenly, Naruto was launched up, some unseen beast vomiting him out into the air. Flying through the sky, out of control, he fell down, smashing headfirst into the eaves of a building. As he fell deeper, he eventually fell into outer darkness, landing once more on a steel pipe that seemed to extend on infinitely into the heavens above this pit. The steel pipe started to glow red as it heated up, singeing the very insides of his body. Vibrant orange and red flames appeared on the stones about him, the heat licking him as the shadow in the corner of his room reappeared nearby, just out of sight but close enough to feel. "Justice. My true apostles know there is no such thing," it said. Suddenly, he felt as though he were dragged up by a hand. He landed on the ground, sliding off the pipe. As he laid there, he groaned. Opening his eyes, he saw the shadow of a man and a shovel. Dirt was dropped on him from above. He was in a grave, but he wasn't alone. Beside him was a man with golden blonde hair, and on the opposite side was a woman with blood-colored crimson hair. Looking back up, he saw the man again, but now two massive horns curled up above his head, a black crown sitting there. The horned demon reached down to Naruto. "Give me your body as sacrifice, and I will grant your every desire." Naruto, terrified of the man's gaze, swallowed. Who are you?" he asked in a dry and raspy voice. The demon's hand touched Naruto's stomach as a searing pain began to etch an occult symbol into it, an inverted triangle in a circle. Naruto screamed from the pain. The beast leaned in closer. It spoke blasphemy into his face in response to his question. "I am God." Naruto suddenly fell out of bed flailing, screaming in terror. Movement was returned to his body. He struggled to the bedroom light and turned it on, despite his eyes fearing what he might see. As soon as the lights were on, Naruto looked around and noticed that there was nothing in the room with him. There was nothing there at all. Only him. Naruto felt as though he were about to cry. He had never had a dream that vivid or evil before. He dreamt of ghosts and monsters, but this time he felt as though one of Satan's demon lords had visited him personally. Terrified and shaking, he began to make his way toward the bathroom. Opening the door, he walked to the sink, turned on a light, and began to rinse his face with cold water. As he did so, he felt his heart stop. Unable to move, he witnessed pink water going down the drain. He spit into the sink. It was blood. He lifted his eyes to look into the mirror. There he saw a twisted image of himself, covered in blood. His skin a deep, dark Vanta black color, contrasting only with the color of white. The white was in the shape of a skeleton's skull. Down his chest, he saw the shape of a painted-on ribcage. Naruto fell back onto the floor in terror, looking down at himself. He let out a scream. He began to panic. The first thing he did was check himself for wounds. He had none, so he was beginning to fear where that blood had come from. The second thing he did was wash the blood off of him and tried to scrub off the paint. But it didn't seem like paint. It wasn't paint at all, in fact. It almost seemed like the pigment of his skin had shifted to this, because as he washed the blood off, slowly, the pigmentation returned to normal. Getting out of the shower, he dried off and found he was back to his old self, except he had a marking on his stomach. It was an inverted triangle within a circle. He could hardly believe that this was happening. He proceeded to clean up the room, getting rid of any bloody marks. Needless to say, he didn't sleep for the rest of the night. He wasn't sure exactly what to do, so he just sort of stared out the window all night, his paranoia reaching unheard of proportions. If it had just been a dream, that would have been one thing. Maybe he could have slept it off, but now that he discovered himself covered in blood, he began to fear that he was going insane. The next couple days would pass, and he'd return to school where he waited for the final exams. He was so tired. All the same, he never said a word about what had happened to anyone. Nobody would have believed him. The mark was still present on his stomach, but even that wouldn't have proven anything. He went to the library and sought books on Fuinjutsu, beginning to wonder if maybe someone had done this to him on purpose. Perhaps he'd been cast under a genjutsu or something. Despite his attempts to find an answer to these questions, he did not find a thing. Researching Fuinjutsu and occult symbology, he couldn't discover anything. The closest thing he found was the symbol of the Philosopher's Stone, which displayed a triangle within a circle that contained a square inside followed by another circle. But the symbol on his belly was missing that. There was no square, nor was there any secondary circle, and most of all, the triangle was inverted. So as Naruto now sat in school, reflecting upon his dream, the stuff that had happened, he began to wonder what the meaning of it was. He knew that at least 2 of the scenes were from the near-death experiences he had gone through, so perhaps it was a nervous breakdown. Perhaps he just snapped from post-traumatic stress. Maybe it wasn't really blood. Maybe it was paint like the rest of it. Surely that's what it was, right? His mind frayed. Well, as he sat there, Irika continued to go through the names of students for attendance, and while almost everyone was there, Naruto made note that none of the kids he had played with those few days ago were present. They missed attendance. Naruto thought this was weird. Coincidence. Maybe what I said last time scared them and they just don't want to show up. Yeah, that's gotta be it. Naruto went through the tests and managed to pass, and was gifted with a Konoha Shinobi's headband. He would then be told that he was going to be assigned to a new team. Naruto would understand and proceed to head home, attempting to forget about everything that happened. That was until he turned on the news. A story appeared saying serial killer at large. Naruto was certain to lock his doors as soon as he heard about it, but as the story went along, he heard something that shook him to his core. The victims of the serial killer were all the children he had known. The kids who had witnessed his near death and had attempted to cover up the incident. The kids, as well as that genin. According to the news story, the murders had taken place between 3 and 4 a.m., and only one witness saw the culprit leaving the scene of the crime. The culprit was described as a young male in black body paint with what appeared to be a skeletal structure painted across. It said that he wielded a woodcutter's axe, and the wounds of the victims matched the description of the weapon. Things began to click into place. Naruto quickly turned off the TV and stood up. No, it's impossible. It can't be true. It can't have been me. He stood up and strode to the bedroom where he closed the door and turned on the light. He paced back and forth. No, it wasn't me. I would have remembered doing that. It's just a coincidence. I probably know the real culprit and they cast a jutsu on me to make me take the fall for them. That's gotta be what it is. As he was pacing, whether on accident or by fate, Naruto tripped and hit the floor. Rolling over to tend to his nose that he feared might have been broken, he noticed something under the bed. Reaching under, he pulled it out. It was a woodcutter's axe, and the tip was coated in blood. Naruto in his head saw a flash of the scene, of the faces of the boy who had talked to him screaming for his life. Naruto dropped it. I did do it. I am the murderer. The first thing he did was wrap up the axe and hide it in his closet. He needed to get rid of it. Nobody could ever know. As he thought these things, a chill ran up his spine as he heard a voice whisper in his ear. Justice doesn't exist. Naruto had been assigned to a team. That team was Team 7 under Kakashi Hatake. By his side, he had Sakura and Sasuke. Naruto and the others would take that old bell test that had been passed down from generation to generation, but Naruto's heart simply wasn't in it. He couldn't take his mind off of what had happened. The blood, the dream, the paint, the axe, the news story informing the whole village of what he had done. He expected that he would soon be arrested for what happened. He could only think about the horrors that awaited him when he was caught. The torture, execution, and considering that the rest of the village already hated his guts, there would be no leniency shown. This is exactly what they wanted. They wanted him to get caught up in something like this. All the same, Naruto knew that what had happened was not of his own volition. He never wanted to kill those people, but what truly scared him is that he had done it and didn't know it. Remembering that horned creature he had seen in a dream, he wondered if there was any way a devil made me do it defense would pass in court. Probably not, but then what else was he supposed to say? Devil did make him do it. Naruto wasn't a party to it. He didn't want it. He didn't even know about it until after it was over. And now Naruto was left wondering where the justice was. He received no justice, it seemed, for his sufferings, and now those he killed would receive no justice because Naruto was too scared to come out and tell anyone. But then, if Naruto did go out and tell people to give justice to his victims, then Naruto would be severely punished, which would be injustice to him, would it not? These thoughts clouded his judgment and left him unable to pay attention to anything, something Kakashi noticed. From what he read about Naruto, he was supposed to be loud, boisterous, rowdy, unable to be controlled, moving along with his own whims boldly as if no one could tell him no. But as Kakashi watched him, he couldn't help but see a timid boy, unsure of himself, caught in the grip of fear and despair. It was written all over Naruto's face like a book. Something was killing him inside, and he was unable to find an escape. Team 7 failed to get the bells, of course, but due to Sakura and Sasuke's choices, they ended up passing. Naruto couldn't care less, of course. He was debating in his heart whether he should get rid of the axe and the bloody clothes he'd been wearing, or if he should turn himself into the Konoha police force. All of this while the thought lingered in the back of his head, what if I do it again? That was a big question on his mind. Was it possible that it could happen again? What if Naruto committed another murder? How was he supposed to stop that? Looking down at his hands, he saw that he was conscious, and because of that, he knew he was in control. But that meant that something could take control of him when he wasn't conscious. As the day came to an end, Kakashi, being unwilling to just come out and ask what the issue was, followed Naruto home. He watched him enter the building and ascend the stairs. He watched from a distant rooftop to see what Naruto was doing. As the day passed, Naruto still didn't seem to get much better. Naruto would pick at some food, would seemingly take a shower, and as night came, he would crawl into bed. But something strange was happening as he did so. Keeping a closer eye on it, he saw Naruto rooting through a chest of sorts until he found what he was looking for, a key and a set of handcuffs. Sitting the key on a table just out of arm's reach, Naruto would click one of the cuffs around the bedpost and the other around his wrist. There, he seemed to go to sleep. Kakashi was confused by this. Why would Naruto do something so strange? It seemed that Naruto had gone to sleep at this point, so Kakashi called his spying quits for the day. But he began to wonder what all of this meant. Naruto being so low energy all the time, lacking passion or fire, his attention constantly split and never on the moment. And now, as he slept, Naruto was chaining himself to the bed. What, was he afraid he might sleepwalk? What was this odd ritual? Something was bothering Naruto, and Kakashi wanted to figure it out. The issue was, he wasn't sure Naruto was going to tell him. The next day came and Naruto awakened. As he did, he saw that he was still in bed. There was no blood or anything else on him, which was good. He let out a sigh of relief as his heart was set at ease. Perhaps it was going to work. Even if he attempted to get up during the night, the cuffs kept him down. He knew that they would work, so he could now sleep with a little bit of security. Knowing it was time to get up, Naruto reached out to get the key and then realized it was out of reach. His hand couldn't reach the table. Well, if it were easy, it wouldn't work. Naruto tried a new tactic. He tried to reach out with his leg, hoping that his toes were able to grab the little piece of metal. As soon as he felt his foot touch the metal of the key, he got excited. He attempted to pick it up. As he did so, though, the key slid from the table and fell to the floor. "No!" Naruto shouted as the key hit the ground, now out of reach of even his feet. How was he going to get loose now? Naruto assumed he would have to move the bed, but considering that the key was on the table opposite the post he was chained to, he would not only have to move the bed, but spin it around. He didn't really want to do that, but he didn't really have another choice. Getting up, he began to push and pull the bed, attempting to reposition it, the constant movement threatening to scratch his hardwood floors. He felt like he was getting nowhere and would never be getting anywhere. That is, until he turned around to see Kakashi sitting in the open window. "Kakashi-sensei," Naruto said, offering him a bow of respect. Kakashi looked at him and what he was doing and asked him flatly, "What's all this about?" Naruto looked back. "I accidentally dropped the key to my cuffs and I can't reach them." "Why are you cuffed in the first place?" Kakashi asked. Naruto struggled to find an answer. Kakashi picked up the key. As he unlocked the cuffs, he asked again, "What's with the cuffs, Naruto?" Trying to think on his feet, he blurted out the first thing that came to his mind as an explanation. "It's kinky." Naruto covered his mouth, having not thought out that lie. Kakashi was frozen in shock for a moment. That's your business then." He dropped the key and began walking out from the now freed Naruto. "Wait," Naruto said. Kakashi looked back. "What is it?" Naruto spoke. It's not that." Kakashi then spoke. "Does this have anything to do with what's been bothering you the past few days?" Naruto nodded. He sat down on the bed. Kakashi would walk back to the bed and sit down on it with him. Have you ever gone to sleep and then wake up to find that things have changed? Like you've left the bed and done things?" Kakashi listened to what Naruto was saying. "Kinda like sleepwalking." Naruto thought about it. "Yeah, something like that, but the things you do are dangerous." Kakashi understood. "I see. You went to sleep one night and woke up doing something dangerous. So now you're afraid that if you don't chain yourself down, you could do it again. Maybe this time get hurt." Naruto nodded. "I can take responsibility for things I do when I'm awake, but I can't take responsibility for things I do when I'm asleep. I don't know what to do, Kakashi-sensei." Kakashi put a hand on Naruto's shoulder. "It's not uncommon to sleepwalk. A lot of people do it. It's prevalent, I've heard, in ninjas. We had a whole study about it. It could have to do with stress in your daily duties. It's possible that when you sleep, subconsciously you still assume you're at work, and so you attempt to continue doing work, but trust me, it gets better with time. You'll eventually grow out of it and won't need these silly cuffs anymore. I don't know, Naruto said. Kakashi let out a sigh. Are you really that busted up over it? Like you're not going to be able to sleep without these things? Naruto nodded. Kakashi tossed them back to Naruto. Fine, if that's really how it is, I'll just come unlock you every morning. Naruto looked up at him. Really? Kakashi nodded. You just better get to sleep on time every night. I have no use for a shinobi who can't even drag himself out of bed. Kakashi went to the window and climbed up on it. Also, be sure not to drink too much water before bed, and always use the bathroom. If I come back and you've peed the bed, I'm leaving you chained. Naruto nodded. I promise. As Kakashi left, Naruto felt a bit more hopeful about the situation. Getting up, he cleaned up, grabbed a bite to eat, and made his way out, making his way to his team was located. But as he did so, he had no clue of what was currently entering the village. At the gate, 3 hooded figures appeared. Are you sure he's here? One of the men in hoods asked. Another turned his shrouded face to look at the one bearing the question. His head offered a subtle nod to indicate that he was. One of the followers, the youngest of the 3, offered praises to their god, Jashin, before moving deeper. I've seen him myself. He was pierced upon a pipe and did not perish. It's just as the prophecy foretold. The one, surely the master of the other 2, offered a smile. Then let us fetch him. His body will serve as the perfect sacrifice. The one that had led them there then spoke. No need to be afraid. He will come to us, he said, producing what looked to be a puppet. The man at the center applauded his subordinate in having it all planned out. From there, the 3 of them waited until nightfall. During daily training, Kakashi watched Naruto as he trained. He seemed to be in a much better mood, but he still felt like there was something Naruto wasn't telling him. This became a bit more apparent when, as they trained, Kakashi caught a glimpse of something under Naruto's shirt. Calling his student over, he asked him to lift it and show him. Naruto, seized with terror, seemed to almost refuse to do so. Kakashi glared at him. The words were not a suggestion, they were orders. Naruto lifted his shirt to show the odd symbol. Kakashi looked at it, as did Sasuke and Sakura. Kakashi then looked to Naruto. What does this mean? Naruto was quiet for a moment. I've never seen anything like it, Sakura said. Sasuke was silent as he looked. He didn't know either, but he didn't really care all the same. So what? Naruto had a weird-ass tattoo. What difference did that make? Kakashi looked at him again. Where did you get this tattoo, Naruto? Naruto took a deep breath. I don't know exactly. What do you mean you don't know? Kakashi asked. Naruto shrugged as he dropped his shirt. Just as I said, I don't know. I went to sleep one evening and later that night I woke up and it was just there. Kakashi then drew closer and spoke in a hushed tone. Does this have to do with your sleepwalking? Naruto looked half ready to cry as he remembered what he had done that night, something he'd been trying to forget. Kakashi put a hand on his shoulder. In Kakashi's own head, he knew that curse marks didn't just appear out of nowhere, and that it had to have a meaning. That being said, neither he himself nor Naruto seemed to know what this meant. Kakashi couldn't shake the feeling that he may have seen it before, but where, he wasn't so sure. Naruto grew pale from the situation. Kakashi understood that whatever was happening was a bit worse than just simple sleepwalking. Naruto may have been under someone's control via a curse mark. As the day's training came to a close, Kakashi allowed his team to go home. He himself would do something different. As the night fell upon them, Kakashi made his way to the Hokage's mansion, where he would speak with Hiruzen. Something strange is up with Naruto, Kakashi said. Hiruzen would look back and ask what he meant by that. Kakashi would begin to explain how Naruto had seemingly grown terrified about something, but he wasn't sure what it was. Well, I'm sure you've heard, but in the days leading up to him being transferred to your care, he suffered a near-death experience, to which he was impaled on a steel pipe. He then nearly drowned after whoever witnessed the situation felt compelled to hide his body in the nearby lake. I guess that could be one answer, but he says he's been sleepwalking. I walked in on him today in his room having handcuffed himself to the bed. Hiruzen's face showed a bit of concern. He hasn't told me about anything bothering him. Kakashi then spoke again. Just today, while I was training, I noticed something. Hiruzen raised a brow. You did? What was it? He has a strange mark on his belly that I didn't recognize. Hiruzen sat forward. A strange mark. Kakashi nodded. He pulled out a pen and a piece of paper and began to draw it out. I feel like I've seen it before, but I don't really recognize it. He drew the circle with the inverted triangle. It almost seems like a curse mark to me. He says he doesn't know where it came from and that it showed up the day he was sleepwalking. Hiruzen looked at it. It does seem familiar, but I can't remember what it is. We could always check our records, see if we can't cross-reference it with known marks. Kakashi nodded. I fear Naruto could be in danger, and we need to figure out what this is before it's too late. After getting home, Naruto attempted to preoccupy himself, watching a little TV while eating supper. As he did so, he began to wonder what all of this could mean. He looked down at the mark again, wishing he understood it. Maybe if he did, it would help him figure out how to break free from this spell. He stood and began to make himself ready for bed. Laying down, he put the key where he couldn't reach it and chained himself to the bed once again by the handcuffs. Laying back, he took a deep breath and attempted to sleep. Outside on a distant roof, the three hooded figures watched. "There he is," one of the subordinates said. "Okay, Ryuki, begin your technique." Ryuki took out paint and made the symbol of the circle with the inverted triangle. Once it was painted, he took out a vial. Within was a deep crimson liquid. "This I gathered from the steel pipe where he fell. I've held on to it ever since." He would then dip his pinky finger into it before licking it. As he did so, he displayed a puppet in his hands. "Curse technique. Body controlling manipulated blood." As Naruto laid in the bed asleep, his unconscious body began to contort as his face displayed pain and discomfort. The mark on his stomach began to grow red like burning metal. Naruto's skin began to darken, taking on the white markings of bones like a tattoo on the front. Despite still being unconscious, he sat forward, eyes opened. He looked over at the key. He reached out for it, but couldn't grab it. Looking back at the doorpost, Naruto's body would stand, channel chakra to the palm of its hand, and release it in the middle of a palm strike, snapping the bedpost in two. Naruto, now free from the bed, walked over, grabbed the key, and then unchained himself. Turning into the closet, he grabbed the old woodcutter's axe and began to climb out the window. In the archives room, they continued searching, but were turning up no leads. "I don't understand. I can't properly help my student if we don't have all the information." As Kakashi said this, Hiruzen sat down. "Kakashi, I need to tell you something." Kakashi looked over. Hiruzen waited for his subordinate to sit down. "Given that you are the mentor of Naruto, I realize now that you are required to know this. Naruto didn't have a near-death experience." Kakashi listened to this, trying to guess what Hiruzen was going to say next. Hiruzen then spoke. "Naruto died." Kakashi did not see that coming. "Wait, you mean he actually died?" Hiruzen nodded. "I received a call from him saying that he had hurt himself badly, and as I checked it out, I realized that he had mortally wounded himself. When I took him to the hospital for surgery, the surgeons told me that he had never once displayed any life signs. He didn't even have a pulse, and that was before he was sedated. Naruto's body was dead, yet he was still moving, still alive. I brought in my student, Tsunade, to investigate him, and though her findings were inconclusive, she did mention something in her report. She said that Naruto's blood showed division in dead cells. She also said that those dead cells actually began bringing themselves back to life. From what I can tell, Naruto's body is practically immortal. I can't prove anything, but his body seems capable of regenerating from death completely. I don't know what it is. It's like he's already dead and has turned death into a form of life." "Like undead?" Kakashi asked. Hiruzen nodded. "His body continues to function after death, and it seems to restore itself. Tsunade is still working on understanding his biology as we speak, but for the most part, he's practically immortal." Kakashi was shocked about this information. "It seems it would have been better to tell me this stuff before I took him on as a student, don't you think?" Hiruzen nodded. "I should have told you, but at the time we were treating this as top secret information." Kakashi didn't act like he couldn't understand this. He did, and was grateful to have finally been told. "Something irks me though," he said. "I feel as though I've heard of this before." Kakashi stood and walked to the records and began searching through them for any information pertaining to immortality. As he did, he stumbled upon a stub of a recording mentioning an occult group formed after a religion known as Joshinism. It was here that he realized that their symbol was exactly what Naruto had on his torso. "Hiruzen, look at this." Hiruzen walked over and began reading it. Hiruzen looked at Kakashi in terror. "Find Naruto." Kakashi was jumping from rooftop to rooftop, heading to Naruto's apartment. As he entered the bedroom, he found that Naruto was nowhere to be seen, and that the cuffs and bedposts they were attached to were discarded in the middle of the room. Kakashi knew something was wrong. He summoned his ninken, Pakun. "Hurry, Pakun. I need you to pick up the scent. Sniff the cuffs." Pakun, not questioning Kakashi, walked to the cuffs and gave them a sniff. Picking it up, he made his way back outside. Pakun found a direction and followed it. Kakashi and his Ninken kept racing along until in the distance they saw 4 figures heading for the edge of the village. As he caught up, Naruto would turn around, displaying his new horrendous transformation. Raising his axe, he attempted to split Kakashi down the middle, but Kakashi raised his hands, each bearing a kunai, and used them to deflect the axe blow. The 3 of them jumped down to the ground. Kakashi followed. As they continued to run, the smallest of the 3 hooded figures turned back and waved his hand, causing the ground to turn to mud and catch Kakashi. Then, with a wave of his hand, the man brought the entirety of Hokage Rock down upon the village, crushing the buildings closest to the rock, including the Hokage's mansion. Kakashi looked back and saw the devastation. He kept fighting to break free of the mud, but by the time he did so, the group had escaped with Naruto. It was then that Kakashi knew that his assumption was correct. Naruto was being controlled by a group of cultists. After they had left the village, Pakun had lost the scent. Returning, Kakashi began to help sort through the rubble. Thankfully, Hiruzen was relatively unharmed, but the same couldn't be said for many others. After this, Kakashi lamented that he couldn't save Naruto. He stated that he felt bad that he failed his student, but Hiruzen told him that it wasn't his fault, and that they would find Naruto. It was after this that Tsunade would approach the two. She would bid them both to the hospital, where she would go over a discovery she had made. The ability to revive the dead cells and cause them to continue mitosis even after death was unusual, but that's when I realized it. The chakra that's inside Naruto controls the chi inside of his blood. That's how he's granted immortality. I can't recreate it for reasons unknown, but I did learn something equally important. What is it? Hiruzen asked. How to stop it? Kakashi was silent for a moment. I don't plan to use this to kill my student, if that's what you mean. Hiruzen shook his head. Not that we would ask you to, but that cult of Jashin that we were reading about have somehow managed to recreate that same immortality. It's possible that you will face others with immortality, and it will be key to know how to defeat them. Tsunade then continued her explanation. It's not as hard as it seems. All one has to do is seal the chakra inside of them. In doing so, the bodies will no longer be able to persist through adversity or regenerate. And how would I do that? Kakashi asked. Tsunade then presented Kakashi with tags. Place this tag on the target somewhere and the curse mark will spread over their body, locking their chakra down. That should make it possible to kill them. This will increase your chances of rescuing Naruto. Kakashi took the tags and offered her thanks. Naruto awakened in a drab, dank cave. Where am I? He then saw someone at the bars that had been used to turn this cave into a prison cell. You're here in one of the Jashinist outposts. Naruto looked at the figure before him. They were young, it seemed, possessing darker skin, but despite that their hair was silver, almost white. The door of the cage opened and the person walked in, carrying a platter of the best foods they had to offer. Kneeling down, they offered some to him. Naruto was skeptical at first, but looking upon their face, their smile bright and inviting, he didn't feel like the food would be poisoned. He took a bite. The person before him was androgynous, seeming to be passable for either gender. Unable to guess for himself, he asked flatly, "Are you a dude or a lady?" The figure stopped, their face shocked at the question before bursting out into laughter. I guess the lights are rather dim in here. I am Amayuki, and indeed I am a male. I'm a priest of the god Jashin, along with my fellow servants Ryuki and Hidan. We 3 are in service to the Great Destroyer, the one who sets free the people of their pain through the release of death. Naruto was startled and began spitting the food out. You're gonna kill me? He shouted. The boy was shocked at the sudden rejection of food, but then understood. Ah, you're afraid of death. You shouldn't be. Death is natural, and it returns us to the oneness of everything. But if it brings you any consolation, we're not going to end your life. No, we need you. You need me? Why? Suddenly, another voice spoke. To serve as a vessel. Naruto looked to see a man with lavender hair standing there, and a white-haired man behind him. Vessel? Naruto questioned. There's a prophecy passed down from generation to generation that the true death for all and the start of a new life will be brought about not by any one priest but by the hand of Jashin himself. It's foretold that the one who's born of a man whose hand calls forth gods will marry a woman whose body contains a demon. Their forbidden union will create a child who has been touched by death itself, a child who can touch both the gods and contain the demons. He will be the chosen vessel of Jashin himself to incarnate into this world and bring an eternal peace and rest to the hard-working people. A child born of... I don't even know who my parents are. How am I some prophesized vessel? Hidan walked in. Because while you don't know who you are, we do. Long ago, the previous high priest before myself visited Konoha. He had seen a vision from Jashin himself that the birth of the one foretold was at hand, and that the child would need to be sanctified through blood. Visiting the village, he was led by his visions to a cave, where he found the one who held the demon giving birth by the man whose hands touched the Raijin, whose hands called the Shinigami. This man was your father, and so, to sanctify you, he took your mother and lured out your father. With the hand of the very demon she once bore, the priest killed both your parents. Your father, as predicted, would use his hands to call the Shinigami to seal the demon into his son, you. At their deaths, the priest offered a ritual that made them sacrifice to Jashin, and in return, Jashin bestowed upon you immortality. Did you not wonder how you survived your fall? How you survived the pipe going through your chest? How you survived underwater for hours without oxygen? You fear death, but it's ludicrous because you can't die. That's the gift and curse that Jashin has bestowed upon you. And he did it so that you could and would become exactly as the prophecy foretold, the vessel of Jashin. Amayuki attempted to feed Naruto again, but he pulled away. You have to eat, Amayuki said. Starvation is the only way we can die without Jashin willing it. Don't worry, Amayuki, Hidan said. The boy won't have enough time to starve. All we need to do now is prepare the sacrifices. The blood of 3. Who should we sacrifice, Ryuki asked. In antiquity, Jashin preferred the blood of a virgin. I feel that we should search for that. Konoha is crawling with them. If properly offered, Jashin will bestow upon us blessings. Prepare to find proper sacrifices. As the days passed, one female disappeared. It was believed to have been at the hands of whatever serial killer had taken the children a few nights before. But the day after, another disappeared. As this girl was taken, an eyewitness remarked that they saw 3 hooded figures taking her. This got around to Hiruzen. Hiruzen issued a secret order that all children be kept indoors for the time being, and that they should never leave the side of their parents. The more they read up on Jashin, the more they came to realize what evil deeds they were planning. They were going to attempt to sacrifice innocent souls to their demon god. We need to find them quickly. If we don't, those children will be lost. The issue is that they can't be tracked, Kakashi says. Pakun can't smell them once they leave the village. Hiruzen rubbed his face in his hands, unsure of what to do. That was when Kakashi spoke. I do have one idea, he said. Hiruzen looked up at him. What is it? Kakashi took a deep breath before speaking. If they're here to take young women, then why don't we give them one? Hiruzen immediately stopped Kakashi. We're not giving them a girl, Kakashi. I will not risk the life of an innocent. Don't be quick to shut me down, Lord Third. I'm not saying that we give them anyone. I'm suggesting that we give them a Konoha shinobi, one that we'll have a tracker in. That way, when they take her to their base, we can track them down. Then we should find not only Naruto, but the others as well. Who would you choose to do this? I'm going to do it, Sakura said, as Hiruzen and Kakashi explained to her. You don't have to do this, Sakura, Hiruzen said. Kakashi nodded. This is a very dangerous mission, Sakura, and if anything goes wrong, you could very well be on your own. Sakura nodded. I understand the risks, but this is something I have to do. If I don't do it, those girls and Naruto will die. At the very least, we can offer them a chance to survive. Kakashi looked at Hiruzen, who looked back. Kakashi leaned forward and offered her a small pellet. This pellet contains a tracking device. Eat it so that if you get taken, we can follow your movements. We'll stay vigilant if they take you. If it's the best you can do, at least try to stall for time. We'll be there as soon as we can. Later that night, the scenario was all set up. All women were kept indoors. Sakura would play the part of the one girl disgruntled, running out into the night, and that's exactly what she did. As night fell, she ran out the door, crying loudly into the night, going to hide. Making her way out into the open, she cried. The scenario was that her father forbade her from beginning a relationship with the last Uchiha, something that made it easy for her to cry. Sitting there, she played the most enticing, distressed damsel that she could, hoping to bring the cultists close. And just as they predicted, it worked. She would be abducted out of the blue. They'd begin to leave the village with her as Kakashi began to follow along with Sasuke. As they ran, they would bring her to their lair, where she'd be thrown into the same cell as the other 2 girls. She looked back at Hidan and the others. What are you doing to us? Hidan smiled and reached in to caress Sakura's cheek. No need to fret, my child. Soon you'll be freed from this mortal coil, and in the oneness of death, you and your star-crossed lover will soon be united. Sakura bit Hidan's hand. Hidan pulled away. He growled at her before looking to Amayuki and Ryuki. Prepare the altar. We need to do this by midnight. The other 2 girls were beginning to panic. Sakura walked to them and shushed them. Don't be afraid. I'm a Konoha Genin. I'm here to help you escape. I promise. Help is on the way. We just have to stall for as much time as we can. Outside, Sasuke and Kakashi found the caves. They drew closer. Once we go inside, we split up. You find the prisoners and I'll find the cultists. Sasuke nodded. Kakashi then handed Sasuke some tags just in case. If you run into a cultist, put that on them somewhere. It should arrest their chakra, making them easy to kill. Sasuke stuffed them into his pocket. The two of them then prepared to breach. Within the caves, though, the cultists grabbed Naruto, bound him, and took him into the altar room. Inside was a large circle painted with blood. At the center of that circle was an inverted triangle. There were 4 altars set up, one at each point of the triangle and one in the center. They laid Naruto down on the center triangle. As Naruto laid there, the 3 cultists stood above him. Be calm. Soon you'll be the most revered being on the face of this planet. Hidan looked at the others. Go get the girls. I don't think so, another voice said. They all looked in the direction of the voice. Naruto's eyes lit up. Kakashi-sensei! Kakashi then spoke. As we speak, my student is freeing your sacrifices now. You won't get away with it. Amayuki prepared to utilize his mud release, but Hidan stopped him. No, Amayuki, we can't risk the circle being broken. We have been blessed with immortality. Use it. Simply walk over and kill him. Amayuki nodded and pulled a kunai. He began walking over to Kakashi. Kakashi would pull a tag and attach it to Amayuki's shoulder. The sealing formula would suddenly spread over his body. Hey, what did you do? He demanded to know. Kakashi would quickly weave hand signs and rush forward with a chidori, piercing Amayuki's chest. Amayuki would stumble back. Hidan would laugh. You fool! You can't kill us! But just as Hidan said that, Amayuki fell to his knees. Lord Hidan, something's wrong. Hidan looked at him. I can't see. Blood was pouring from his wound, and Amayuki was becoming paler. Kakashi then spoke. As it turns out, your immortality manipulates the very life energy in your blood to revive you. All of your techniques seem to rely on blood from what I've studied. We've simply found a way to sever your connection to the blood of your victims as well as yourself. Hidan, knowing that they may have just been beaten, looked to Ryuki. Ryuki, Plan Z. Ryuki nods. They lift Amayuki onto one of the altars, and there they let him bleed out, his blood covering the altar. With fire style, Hidan sets the altar ablaze. He then sets the second and third altars ablaze, much to Kakashi's horror. Hidan and Ryuki both pull out ceremonial daggers and speak. Joshin, our sacrifice of 3 virgins has failed you. In return, take the blood of 3 martyrs. They both stab themselves in the heart while climbing onto the altar. Suddenly, the flames turn green and shoot up to consume their bodies. Kakashi rushes over to try and get Naruto free, but a barrier seems to have come over the circle. Kakashi-sensei! At about this time, Sasuke and Sakura appear, the 2 girls behind them, afraid. Sakura tells them to find a safe place to lay low. Sasuke and Sakura draw closer to Kakashi. Naruto! Kakashi cries out. Suddenly, a black cloud appears within the circle. The ashes and smoke of the burned bodies consolidating into a shadow figure above. It lowers to the ground where it pushes itself through Naruto's mouth and nose. Naruto screams as this occurs. Darkness seems to envelop the entire room. The sound of rushing air and groanings of fear and discomfort continue for a time before all turns silent. Naruto? Sakura asks. They hear a deep voice speak. Naruto can't hear you anymore. He can never hear you again. Kakashi, Sasuke, and Sakura pull out their kunai. Sasuke performs a fire-style ninjutsu to light the room, only for them to catch a glimpse of Naruto, his form deep black with white markings, his eyes black as night, and a crown of horns protruding from the top of his head. Suddenly, the monster rushes Sasuke with inhuman speed, putting him on the ground, clawing his chest. Joshin licks the blood from his claws. He then holds his arm out. As he does, Sasuke's arm also extends without his approval. Joshin forces Sasuke to take one of his own kunai into his hand in an attempt to make him stab himself. Sasuke, reaching into his pocket, pulls one of the tags and sticks it onto himself. As he does so, suddenly the connection between his chakra and chi is cut off, freezing him from Joshin's control. Joshin growls in anger. This is when Sakura and Kakashi realize it. He can't curse us if our blood is neutralized. Kakashi takes out a tag and places it on himself and instructs Sakura to do the same. What are we supposed to do? Sakura asked. Can we even exorcise this thing from Naruto? Kakashi shrugs. The only way I can think is if we sever his chakra from his chi. Maybe that will drive out whatever demon's possessing him. The issue with this plan is that they've now neutralized their usage of chakra, meaning that Joshin has an even greater advantage. It rushes them, slicing at them with incredible speed. Kakashi barely dodges. As he does, he attempts to stick a tag to Joshin only for the tag to be shredded. Sakura tries the same, but it dodges again. It manages to grip her by the hair. She screams as it pulls her close to it. Joshin sniffs her. As a virgin come to sacrifice herself to me. Kakashi-sensei, she screams in terror. Jashin looks to Kakashi and puts his claw upon her neck.
I wouldn't do that, Kakashi-sensei. You don't want your student to get hurt, do you?
Just at that moment, Sasuke throws a kunai. The kunai had a tag attached to it. It shreds through Sakura's hair, freeing her from Jashin's grasp. It then sticks Jashin as the kunai strikes him. He stumbles back as the seal is put on him.
What have you heretics done to me?
He demands. Sakura crawls away. Kakashi looks around. I have an idea. Get it back into the circle. Sakura rushes forward and drop-kicks Jashin back in. Kakashi then runs and places a tag on each of the altars. As this happens, the green flames suddenly turn blue. Jashin looks around.
No! What have you done?
Suddenly, Jashin grabs his head and falls to his knees. The smoke is expelled from Naruto's nose and mouth out into the air. There, the smoke writhes and cries. Kakashi, seeing his chance, pulls an empty scroll and opens it, writing out a formula. Freeing himself from his tag's own effects, he would then use the same sealing technique he used to seal weapons into scrolls to seal the demon away. He covers the seal with another on top, that being the evil sealing method. What once served as Jashin's strength, that being blood, would now be what is used to bind him into the scroll. With the Fuinjutsu complete, he closes the scroll and ties it shut, adding another seal on top to make sure that it stayed that way. Within the circle, Naruto lay motionless. Sakura ran to him. The seal on his stomach disappeared. Naruto, Sakura cried out. Naruto, can you hear me? Suddenly, he opened his eyes. Sakura? Sakura let out a sigh of relief as tears rolled down her cheeks. You're okay. Kakashi walked over to Naruto. Naruto looked up. Kakashi-sensei, I'm sorry. About what? Kakashi asked. Naruto then spoke. The serial killer in the village. That was you, Kakashi said. Naruto looked up. How did you know? I saw your markings and the fact that you were carrying a woodcutter's axe and made the connection. Naruto looked down in shame. Kakashi spoke. Why didn't you tell us before? Naruto looked up. I was scared. I had just killed so many people. Innocent people. Maybe they thought I was dead and tried to cover it up, but they were still deserving of life. And when I was sleeping, I committed murder against them. I was so scared. I thought the village for sure would kill me. Didn't you consider explaining it to us? Kakashi asked. Naruto nodded. I thought about it, but with how much the village seems to hate me, I knew I wouldn't have a chance to explain. Nobody would understand, or worse yet, nobody would believe me. I was afraid that the village would have me executed. I couldn't tell. I'm sorry. Kakashi took a deep breath in and let it out. You should have told me when you had the chance. Naruto nodded. Kakashi continued, but now we know and I can explain it to the Hokage. You weren't the one who killed those people. It was that Ryuki guy who was using you as an unconscious puppet. And now that Ryuki is dead, I think justice is served. Naruto looked down. That demon. It told me that justice wasn't real, and I started to believe it. Kakashi put his hand on Naruto's shoulder. Rest assured, Naruto, justice is real. We witnessed it tonight. It's not something controlled by any man, and it will come whether we aid it or not. Justice came, and now the matter's settled. How about we all return to the village? And so they did just that. Naruto's story was told to Hiruzen, who would clear him of all charges. He was taken to the hospital where he received a clean bill of health. Tsunade continued to do tests on him and she came to understand that Naruto was no longer immortal. Her tests could not recreate the same phenomenon that had made him immortal in the first place, but she mused that maybe immortality was something that shouldn't be in the hands of man in the first place. It was not up to man to play God. Everyone had their time and place. And despite knowing that, Naruto continued to be a shinobi, hoping to one day fulfill his dream of being Hokage. But first, he wished to sleep. Returning home, he slept peacefully for the first time in many nights. No more nightmares, no more fears. And that's the end of the story. I hope you all enjoyed it. I liked this new take on Hidan, an idea of what he could have been if he wasn't an Akatsuki member. Honestly, I think this character could have easily been reused for Boruto, the last surviving member of the Akatsuki. Imagine that. I know they had an arc about the cult of Jashin, but it could have been so much better with Hidan in it. But alas, there is no use crying over spilt milk. So, did you like the video? Let us know in the comments below. Remember to like, subscribe, ring the bell, and all that other good stuff. And while you're at it, check out these other videos on your screen right now. And until next time, peace out.